For an organism to survive across generations, it has to reproduce. But a plant is physically stuck in one spot. It can't move to find a mate or seek out a better environment. In this cross-section, we see the mechanical components. Reproduction requires a physical payload to move from the male part, the anther, to the female part, the stigma. That pollen grain must travel across that gap to initiate making a seed. If a flower uses its own pollen to make that seed, it creates a genetic mirror of itself. This is efficient, but it means the offspring inherit the exact same weaknesses. If one plant is susceptible to a specific fungus or a heat wave, every one of its identical descendants will be too. Every species faces a trade-off. It can take the easy, guaranteed route of cloning its own DNA, or it can spend energy trying to reach the outside world to find the genetic diversity it needs to survive a changing environment. This diagram illustrates autogamy, or true self-pollination. It's a closed-loop system where pollen never leaves the flower, maximizing seed production. For this to work, male and female parts must mature simultaneously. If the anther releases pollen while the stigma is closed, the loop fails. Species like the pea or the viola take this even further. They produce flowers that never actually open their petals, keeping the entire reproductive process sealed away from the world. There is also geitonogamy, where pollen moves between different flowers on the same plant. To an outside observer, it looks like crossing, but because the DNA is identical across the whole plant, the biological result is still a clone. These strategies prevent immediate extinction because they don't require any outside help. However, because these plants aren't introducing new genes, their lineage can be wiped out by a single environmental shift that their DNA isn't equipped to handle. The high-reward alternative is cross-pollination. This diagram shows the difficulty. Pollen must reach a completely different, genetically distinct plant to succeed. The payoff is clear. Mixing DNA creates offspring with improved vigor and a higher natural resistance to disease. But since the plant is still rooted to the ground, it has to find a way to move that pollen across the physical gap between neighbors. Many species use the wind, an approach called anemophily. As we see here, it is a numbers game. Millions of dry, light grains are ejected violently into the air, in the hope that a few will land on the right target. Because wind is indifferent, these plants don't waste energy on bright colors or scents. Instead, they grow massive, feathery stigmas designed specifically to catch any floating pollen that happens to drift by. This resource is free, but it's imprecise. To make it work, the plant must produce a massive surplus of pollen, knowing that most of its biological investment will simply vanish into the air. To solve the wastefulness of the wind, other plants evolved to use animals as targeted delivery couriers. Insect-pollinated flowers use bright petals and sweet fragrances as signals. They produce sticky pollen that clings to a bee or butterfly, ensuring the genetic payload stays attached until the insect reaches the next flower. Birds like hummingbirds require a higher volume of fuel. Plants that use them grow into deep tubular shapes that fit a beak, and they produce large amounts of watery nectar to keep the bird coming back. For nocturnal couriers like bats, flowers evolve into massive, wide-open shapes that are easy to find in the dark, often emitting strong, musky scents to guide the mammals in. A flower's specific look, its color, its depth, or its smell, is a functional requirement. These traits ensure that the plant only provides a nectar reward when the specific animal capable of making a successful delivery arrives. Every plant we see is the result of a calculated choice between the safety of self-pollination and the genetic benefits of crossing. This split screen shows the physical results of those choices. On the left is the modest, closed blossom of a self-pollinating pea. On the right, the massive, resource-heavy display of a rose designed to attract outsiders. The diversity in a garden isn't just for show. It is a visible map of the different ways plants have solved the problem of being immobile. These flowers are biological mechanisms. Their shapes and colors show us how each species has balanced its immediate need to create a seed against the long-term necessity of adapting to the world around it.